The night the firelight flickered over the worn wooden walls, Ayana's world shattered in a single, whispered deal. The heavy scent of smoke mingled with a sharp tang of sweat in the cramped cabin. Outside, the wind whipped cold and restless, rattling the shutters like a warning from the dark. Inside, her brother stood tall but rigid, his eyes hard and distant beneath thick brows. The man sitting across from him, broad-shouldered, his face shadowed beneath a leather war bonnet, listened quietly as her fate was spoken aloud. "For 2 horses and a saddle, she is yours," her brother said, voice low but merciless. As if trading cattle instead of his own sister, Ayana's heart hammered so loud she thought the man would hear it. She pressed her trembling hands to her mouth, afraid to scream or cry. Her father's faded portrait on the wall seemed to watch, accusing and helpless. The warrior Tayanita, her brother, had called him, though the name felt strange and heavy on her tongue, rose from his seat, his dark eyes fierce and unwavering, like storm clouds over the plains, locked onto hers. Instead of fear, something like fire sparked within her chest. "You are not a possession," he said quietly but firmly. "You are my wife, the queen of my people." His voice was deep, smooth, but carried an unyielding strength that made the room fall silent. The flickering flames cast shadows that danced across his sharp cheekbones, and the braided strands of black hair draped over his broad shoulders, adorned with intricate tribal beads and feathers. Ayana swallowed hard, torn between dread and an unexpected flicker of hope. Her brother shifted uncomfortably, avoiding the warrior's gaze. "This is business, nothing more." Tayanita's lips curved into a faint, almost sad smile. "There is no business in my people's ways. There is honor." The fire sputtered, casting a brief glow on Ayana's pale face. The wind outside howled like a mournful Volf, as if mourning the innocence lost in that cramped room. Memories surged, her childhood running barefoot through fields of wildflowers, her mother's gentle hands brushing her hair, the laughter shared under endless skies. All now seemed like a fading dream swallowed by the dark reality of her brother's greed. Yet, as the warrior extended his hand, his calloused fingers warm and steady, something within her rebelled against despair. "Come," he said softly. "You belong to us now." The cabin door creaked open, and the cold night air rushed in, biting at her skin like icy needles. Outside, stars blanketed the sky, distant and indifferent. The scent of pine and earth beckoned her beyond the narrow walls that had trapped her. She hesitated for a heartbeat, then took his hand. The moment she stepped outside, the world felt different, vast, wild, untamed. The crunch of dry leaves beneath her boots, the chill of the night air, and the distant call of a lone owl wrapped around her like a strange new cloak. Tayanita led her through the forest path, the soft rustle of leaves and crack of twigs underfoot, mingling with the rhythmic beat of hooves behind them. The horses' breath steamed in the cold air, nostrils flaring. As they rode, Ayana's senses sharpened, the cool touch of leather reins in her hands, the steady warmth of the warrior's presence beside her, the sharp scent of sage burned. In a small bundle he carried. The land stretched endlessly beneath. A sky brushed with dawn's first light, mountains rose like ancient sentinels, rivers glistened like threads of silver, and fields swayed with wild grasses kissed by morning dew. She felt the weight of 1,000 eyes upon her, the warrior's clan watching, whispering, judging. Yet in their gaze she sensed something new, not ownership but respect. Tayanita's voice broke the silence. "You are more than you know, Ayana. Here you will find your strength." His words settled in her heart like a seed planted deep in fertile soil, waiting to grow. But the ache of betrayal lingered, a raw wound from her brother's greed that would take time to heal. That night, beneath a sky streaked with stars and the crackle of campfires, Ayana sat wrapped in a blanket, woven from the finest wool, the scent of cedar smoke curling around her. The warriors' people circled nearby, their faces painted and fierce, their laughter echoing through the stillness. For the first time, fear wrestled with a strange sense of belonging. The price her brother had set was cruel. But in this new world of warriors and honor, Ayana realized that she might not just survive, she might rise, and as the fire's glow warmed her face, she dared to believe in a future where she was not sold or broken, but honored. The night held secrets and dangers, but also the promise of a queen. The dawn broke slowly, washing the world in muted shades of lavender and gold. Ayana sat astride a sturdy bay horse, the cool morning air biting gently at her skin through the thin fabric of her worn dress. The forest around them was alive, a chorus of birdsong, the soft rustling of leaves, and the scent of pine needles mingled with the fresh earth beneath her feet. Beside her, Tayanita rode silently, his bare chest gleaming faintly in the first light. The intricate tribal jewelry that adorned his neck and arms caught the sun's glow, beads of bone, turquoise, and feathers weaving stories of his people's past. His long black hair trailed behind him in the breeze like a banner of strength and tradition. Ayana's fingers trembled as she clutched the reins, her eyes drinking in the wild beauty of the land. The vast valley stretched endlessly before them, rolling hills dotted with wildflowers in riotous colors, towering pines that whispered ancient secrets, and distant mountains that stood like silent guardians, their peaks kissed by clouds. She had never imagined a place so raw and untamed, so alive with spirit and history. The air tasted different here, sharper, purer, filled with the scent of sage and cedar, mingling with the distant sound of a flowing river. Tayanita finally broke the silence. This land is our heart, Ayana. Every tree, every stone holds the stories of those who came before. His voice was steady, carrying a quiet reverence that stirred something deep within her. They rode on, the soft crunch of hooves on the forest floor a steady rhythm. Ayana noticed how the clanspeople, men, women, and children, watched her arrival with curious eyes, their expressions guarded but respectful. Their faces were painted with vibrant colors and symbols, each stroke telling a tale of courage and identity. She felt their gazes weigh heavy upon her, but instead of shrinking, a strange pride kindled inside her. She was no longer just a girl, sold away by betrayal. Here, she was part of something greater, a living tapestry woven with honor and strength. As the trail opened to a clearing, the camp came into view. Teepees and wooden lodges formed a circle around a large fire pit, smoke curling upward into the crisp air. The scent of burning cedar wood mixed with roasting meat and sweet herbs. Children laughed and chased each other through the tall grass, their joy a sharp contrast to the turmoil swirling inside her. Tayanita guided her horse gently to a stop near the center of the camp. "You will live here," he said, his dark eyes meeting hers. "Among my people, you are not a captive, but a queen." The words struck her like a thunderclap, echoing in the hollow spaces of her heart. Ayana dismounted, her legs shaky but determined. She felt the rough bark of a nearby tree beneath her fingertips as she steadied herself. Around her, the warriors and women gathered, their faces a mixture of welcome and cautious hope. One of the elder women, her silver hair braided with beads and feathers, stepped forward. Her eyes sparkled with wisdom and kindness as she held out a hand. "Welcome, Ayana. You are safe here." The warmth in her voice wrapped around Ayana like a soft blanket, and for the first time since that cruel night, she allowed herself to breathe. Later, as the sun climbed higher, Ayana walked beside the river that cut through the valley like a ribbon of shimmering glass. The water was icy cold as she dipped her fingers in, watching the sunlight dance on its surface. Fish darted beneath, their scales glinting like scattered jewels. She knelt on the bank, the grass cool and damp beneath her knees. The wind stirred, the wildflowers carrying their sweet scent to her. Somewhere nearby, a hawk cried out, its sharp call piercing the calm Date. Anita appeared beside her, his expression unreadable. This river feeds us. It carries the lifeblood of our people. Ayana nodded, feeling the weight of his words. In this new life, every element was connected, the earth, the water, the sky, and the people. She wanted to believe she could belong here, but the memory of her brother's betrayal clawed at her mind like a relentless shadow. That night, wrapped in a blanket handwoven by the women of the tribe, Ayana sat by the fire. The crackling flames cast flickering light on her thoughtful face. Around her, the clan shared stories and songs, their voices rising in harmony with the rhythm of drums. Tayanita sat close, his presence steady and comforting. He spoke softly of their history, of battles fought and peace earned. His words painted a world of honor and sacrifice, a legacy she was now part of. The air was thick with the scent of sage and sweetgrass, calming her restless heart. The stars above blazed like diamonds against the velvet sky, silent witnesses to the birth of a new chapter. In the quiet, Ayana felt a fragile hope begin to bloom, a hope that perhaps, despite the pain and loss, she could rise to become more than the price her brother paid. The warrior's land was harsh and wild, but it was also filled with life, strength, and the promise of belonging. And for the first time, Ayana dared to dream of a future where she was not a pawn, but a queen. The camp was alive with flickering firelight and the deep, steady beat of drums that echoed through the still night air like the heartbeat of the earth itself. Shadows danced across the faces of the gathered warriors, their painted skin glistening. Beneath the stars, each figure outlined in fire's warm glow. Ayana's breath came in shallow gasps as she stood in the center of the circle, the soft rustle of her dress mingling with the whispers of the wind. The scent of cedar smoke curled upward, thick and sweet, wrapping around her like a protective cloak. Around her, the tribe's eyes were fixed on her, curious, expectant, and perhaps, just perhaps, welcoming. Anita, bare-chested and regal, beneath the tribal jewelry that adorned his neck and wrists, stepped forward. His long black hair shimmered in the firelight, feathers and beads woven carefully within the strands. His dark eyes held a fierce tenderness as they met hers. He carried a wreath, a delicate circle of woven feathers, wildflowers, and fresh greenery, symbols of life, honor, and renewal. The crowd fell silent as he knelt before Ayana, lifting the wreath gently to place it upon her head. The cool touch of the feathers brushed her forehead, and a wave of warmth surged through her. This ceremony is more than tradition. Tayanita's voice rang clear, steady as the drumbeats. It is the binding of two souls, the merging of strength and honor. The elder woman who had welcomed Ayana earlier stepped forward, holding a small bowl of sweetgrass and sage. She lit the herbs, sending fragrant tendrils swirling through the air. The sweet, calming aroma mingled with the smoky fire, filling the space with ancient power. The tribe's voices rose in chant, a haunting melody woven from words old as the mountains, calling on the spirits of the land, the ancestors, and the winds. Ayana closed her eyes, letting the sounds wash over her, feeling the rhythm deep within her chest. Her heart pounded, not with fear, but with a strange, growing pride. Tayanita reached out, taking her hands in his. His grip was firm, yet gentle, a promise of strength and protection. "You are not just the woman sold by blood and greed," he said softly. "You are my wife, the queen of this people. Together, we carry the legacy of our ancestors." The weight of his words settled over her, heavy but sacred. Around them, the clan's chants swelled, filling the night with life. Ayana's eyes fluttered open. She scanned the faces circling her, fierce warriors, wise elders, Laughing children, each reflecting hope and acceptance. The fire crackled louder, sending sparks spiraling upward into the star-studded sky. The night air was thick with the scent of pine and burning cedar, alive with possibility. As the ceremony drew to a close, the elders presented her with a hand-woven cloak adorned with symbols of the clan eagles, bears, and the flowing river that nourished their lands. The soft fabric slipped over her shoulders, grounding her in this new identity. Tayanita lifted her chin gently, his fingers tracing the line of her jaw. Wear it with pride. You are no longer a pawn of betrayal. You are a queen, strong, brave, and honored. The moment hung between them, fragile yet powerful. Like the first fragile light before sunrise, Ayana felt tears prick her eyes. A mix of sorrow for what was lost and fierce determination for what was to come. Later, as the camp settled into quiet, she sat beside the fire, the woven cloak wrapped tightly around her. The warmth seeped through the fabric and into her bones. Tayanita settled near her, his presence a solid comfort. Tomorrow you will meet the council, he said softly. They will judge you not by the past, but by the woman you will become. She nodded, her gaze fixed on the glowing embers. The path ahead was uncertain and fraught with danger, but for the first time she did not feel alone. The night whispered secrets to her, promises of honor, love, and belonging, and beneath the vast, endless sky, Ayana dared to believe she could become the queen they claimed she was. The dawn broke cold and gray, the valley shrouded in mist that clung to the trees like ghostly fingers. Ayana stood on a ridge overlooking the camp, her breath forming fragile clouds in the crisp morning air. The soft murmur of the river far below mingled with the distant calls of waking birds, but beneath the calm surface, tension rippled like an unseen storm. For days, the warmth of the tribe's acceptance had begun to melt the ice around her heart. She had found moments of peace in the quiet songs of the elders and the steady strength of Tayanita's presence. Yet now, a shadow crept back from the edges of her past, threatening to unravel everything she was beginning to build. The first warning came on whispered wind. Hunters had been spotted in the woods near the camp's perimeter, outsiders sent by her brother, the man who had sold her away like a commodity. His greed knew no bounds, and he refused to accept that she was no longer his to claim. Ayana's fingers clenched the edge of her cloak as she heard the news. The hunters were ruthless, driven by coin and power, and they sought to reclaim what they believed was stolen from them. Tayanita appeared beside her, his bare chest taut with resolve. His dark eyes burned with fury tempered by careful control. They do not understand the bonds we have forged, he said quietly. But they will learn. The camp stirred with preparation. Warriors sharpened their blades, checked their bows, and adorned themselves with symbols of protection, painted faces, feathers tied to their hair, charms woven into leather straps. Ayana walked through the camp, the heavy scent of sage and cedar burning thick in the air. Faces that had once been curious now held determination, readiness for the coming battle. The weight of leadership pressed on her, though she was still learning what it meant to wear the crown of this new life. Fear and hope warred inside her. Like the wild river below, violent, unpredictable, yet essential. At the heart of the camp, Tayanita called the warriors together. His voice rang clear and commanding as he outlined the plan. We do not fight to conquer, but to protect what is sacred, our home, our people, our queen. The words filled Ayana with pride and fierce courage. She stepped forward, her voice steady despite the knot tightening in her stomach. I will stand with you, she said, not as a captive but as your queen. Together we are stronger. The warriors murmured their approval, a low rumble of support rising around her. As twilight fell, the camp's fires burned brighter, the shadows stretching long and deep. Ayana stood near Tayanita, watching the horizon where dark shapes moved through the trees, the approaching hunters. The air grew thick with tension, every breath heavy with anticipation. The first arrow sliced through the dusk, and the battle erupted, a whirlwind of movement, shouts, and the clash of steel. The scent of sweat and earth filled the air, mingling with the sharp tang of blood and smoke. Ayana's heart pounded fiercely as she stood beside the warriors, her cloak wrapped tightly around her. Though untrained in battle, her presence was a beacon, a symbol of the bond that held the tribe together. She saw Tyanita move like a force of nature, his powerful frame weaving through the chaos, his eyes blazing with fierce protection. Hunters pressed hard, but the warriors held their ground. The clash was brutal, primal, an ancient dance of survival and honor. In the thick of the fight, Ayana caught sight of a figure slipping through the shadows, her brother. His face was twisted with greed and desperation, eyes cold and unfeeling. The sight stoked the fire within her. She stepped forward, voice ringing clear. "This is not your fight." He sneered, but before he could move, Tyanita appeared, his presence a wall of unyielding strength. "You have lost your claim," the warrior said, voice low but deadly. "She belongs to us." Defeated and furious, her brother fled into the night, swallowed by the darkness he had chosen. When the dust settled and the first light of dawn touched the bloodied earth, the camp breathed a collective sigh of relief. Wounded warriors were tended with care, and the firelight flickered softly against tired but triumphant faces. Ayana knelt beside a small sapling near the riverbank, planting it as a symbol of new beginnings, roots deepening in the rich soil. Reaching toward the sky, Tyanita stood behind her, his hand resting gently on her shoulder. "The past may try to break us, but we are stronger for standing together." The weight of her brother's betrayal still lingered, but in the strength of the tribe, the fierce love of the warrior by her side, and the land that now embraced her, Ayana found a courage she never knew she possessed. The shadows from the past had come, but they would not consume her. She was queen now, and queens were made to endure. The first pale light of dawn filtered through the swaying pines, casting long, trembling shadows across the camp. Ayana sat alone on a smooth, moss-covered rock near the riverbank, the chill morning air tugging at the edges of her hand-woven cloak. The soft murmur of flowing water mingled with the distant calls of waking birds, yet inside her, a tempest raged. Memories tangled like thorny vines. Her brother's cold eyes as he sold her away, the shattering betrayal of family trust, the weight of a past she wished to forget but could not. Her hands clenched the worn fabric of her dress as a familiar ache tightened her chest. She had been thrust into a world she barely understood, where she was not just a girl but a queen, expected to be strong, fearless, and unbreakable. But beneath the fierce exterior, fear whispered cruel doubts. Could she truly belong here? Could she honor the warrior's trust? Or was she forever a captive of her brother's greed and the pain he caused? A soft sound drew her attention. Tyanita approached quietly, his bare feet silent on the soft earth. His dark eyes searched hers, with an intensity that melted the walls she'd built around her heart. "You wrestle with shadows," he said softly, sitting beside her. His warm hand reached out, brushing a stray lock of hair from her face. But even the strongest storms begin with a single breath. Ayana looked away, the vulnerability she tried to hide slipping through. "I fear I'm not enough, not the queen my people deserve." Tyanita's voice was steady, unwavering. "You carry the strength of many, not because you are perfect, but because you rise despite your fears." He took her hands in his touch grounding her trembling spirit. "You are not alone in this battle." She swallowed hard, feeling the weight of his faith settle into her bones like an ember waiting to ignite. The camp stirred to life around them, warriors preparing for the day, women tending fires, children weaving wildflowers into their hair. The scent of burning cedar mingled with the fresh earth, filling the air with a grounding warmth. Ayana rose slowly, the hand-woven cloak falling softly over her shoulders. The fabric's intricate symbols, soaring eagles, flowing rivers, fierce bears, seemed to pulse with silent encouragement. Tayanita stood beside her, his muscular frame silhouetted against the rising sun. "Today you begin to claim your place," he said. "Not as a pawn or a prize, but as the queen who will lead with heart and courage." Her gaze met his, steady and sure. The fear inside her still whispered, but it was quieter now, replaced by a flicker of determination. Together, they walked through the camp, greeting the people who looked to her with growing respect. Children smiled shyly, elders nodded with quiet approval, and warriors clasped her hand with firm strength. Later, as the sun climbed high, a messenger arrived bearing troubling news. Scouts had spotted a band of hostile outsiders approaching. The territory mercenaries hired by those who wished to seize the land. The camp erupted into focused activity. Bows were strung tight, arrows sharpened, and warriors donned painted war mask symbols of protection and bravery. The scent of sage intensified as women and elders performed prayers and rituals to shield their people. Ayana stood with Tayanita on a rocky outcrop overlooking the valley. The air was thick with tension and the earthy scent of pine and crushed leaves. Her heart thundered not from fear, but from a fierce resolve. "This is our land," she said quietly. "Our people's home." Tayanita nodded. "And we will defend it together." As the enemy drew closer, the warriors lined the ridge, their silhouettes fierce and unyielding against the horizon. Ayana's hands trembled for a moment, then steadied as she wrapped the cloak tighter around her. The battle was not just with arrows and steel, but with the storm inside her, the doubt, the memories that threatened to undo her. She closed her eyes, breathing deeply, letting the river's calm flow through her veins. The past was a shadow, but she was the dawn breaking through it. When the first arrows rained down, Ayana stood tall beside Tayanita, her voice rising above. The clash, a rallying call to her people. They fought fiercely, the air thick with dust, sweat, and the cries of battle. But through it all, Ayana's spirit held firm. After the dust settled, she looked around at the faces of her people, tired, bruised, but victorious. Tayanita took her hand, his grip warm and sure. "You have fought well," he said. "Not just with your body, but with your heart." Ayana smiled, tears of relief and pride mingling on her cheeks. The battle within was far from over, but for the first time she knew she would win. The sun rose high over the valley, spilling golden light across the rugged landscape. The sky was an endless blue, brushed with wisps of white clouds that drifted lazily in the morning breeze. Ayana stood on a rocky ledge overlooking the camp. Her cloak wrapped tightly around her shoulders, the intricate patterns embroidered in earth tones glowing softly in the sunlight around her. The tribe was alive with preparation. Warriors moved with practiced precision, stringing bows, sharpening arrows, and painting their faces with bold colors that symbolized courage, protection, and the fierce spirit of their ancestors. The air was thick with the scent of pine needles, crushed beneath heavy boots, and the sweet smoke of burning cedar and sage. It was a scent that whispered strength and resilience, grounding Ayana's restless heart. Beside her stood Tayanita, his muscular frame silhouetted against the glowing horizon. His long black hair caught the light, feathers and beads woven into the strands swaying gently with the breeze. His bare chest gleamed with a sheen of sweat, muscles taut and ready. Tribal jewelry necklaces carved from bone and turquoise, leather. Armbands etched with symbols of the land adorned him like armor more powerful than any blade. He turned to her, dark eyes steady and fierce. "Today, We stand not just to protect our land, but to honor all who have come before us. You are no longer just the girl they tried to claim, you are the queen who leads us." Ayana met his gaze, feeling a surge of strength course through her veins. The fear that had once held her captive was now tempered by determination. She was no longer a pawn of betrayal or a victim of circumstance. Here, among these fierce and proud people, she had become something new, something powerful. Sound of drums began to rise from the center of the camp, low and rhythmic, like the heartbeat of the earth itself. Warriors gathered in tight formation, faces painted in striking designs of red, black, and white. The children and elders watched from the sidelines, their eyes shining with hope and trust. Ayana stepped forward, the weight of the hand-woven cloak on her shoulders reminding her of the responsibility she now carried. The symbols embroidered in the fabric, the soaring eagle, the flowing river, the mighty bear felt alive beneath her fingertips, connecting her to the land and its stories. Tayanita's voice was loud and clear as he addressed the assembled clan. "Our enemies approach with greed and fire, but they do not understand the bond we share. This land is not ours to take, but ours to protect with every breath, every heartbeat." Ayana raised her chin, voice steady and sure. "We fight, not just for survival, but for honor, for our families, for our future." The warriors raised their weapons in unison, a roar of approval echoing through the valley. As the enemy drew near, dark line of mercenaries cutting through the trees, the tension in the air thickened. The scent of sweat and earth mingled with the faint metallic tang of sharpened blades. The wild grasses swayed in the breeze as if whispering warnings. Ayana stood beside Tayanita, her hand clasped tightly in his. The sun caught the glint of his tribal jewelry, a reminder of the legacy they defended together. When the first arrow flew, the battle erupted like a thunderstorm. The clang of steel, the twang of bowstrings, and the cries of warriors filled the Tinsdu Valley. The ground beneath their feet trembled with the fury of combat. Ayana's heart pounded in rhythm with the drums, each beat a call to courage. Though she wielded no weapon, her presence was a beacon to the clan, a symbol of unity and hope. She moved through the chaos with purpose, rallying those who faltered, lending strength where it was needed most. Tayanita fought like the storm his name promised, powerful, relentless, and unyielding. His every move was precise, a dance of strength and skill that protected their people and crushed their foes. The battle raged until the sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows over the battered land. When silence finally fell, it was heavy, but victorious. Ayana looked around at the faces of her people, wounded but unbroken, fierce and proud. The firelight flickered against bruised cheeks and sweat-soaked hair, but their eyes shone with unshakable resolve. Tayanita came to her side, his hand warm and steady as he pulled her close. "You have risen," he said softly, "not just as a queen, but as the heart of this people." She smiled through tears of exhaustion and triumph. The battle had been fierce, but it had forged her into something stronger than she had ever imagined. Sun dipped below the mountains, painting the sky with hues of amber and rose. The camp gathered around the fire, voices raised in song and celebration, stories of courage, loss, and the promise of new beginnings. Ayana looked up at the stars that began to twinkle above, feeling the weight of the past lift from her shoulders. She was no longer the girl sold away in the dead of night. She was a queen, and the rising sun was hers to command. The first light of morning filtered softly through the tall pines, painting the valley in gentle hues of rose and gold. The air was cool and fresh, carrying the scent of pine needles and earth renewal whispered on the breeze. Ayana stood at the edge of the river, the water's surface smooth as glass, reflecting the awakening sky. The battle was over. Around her, The camp stirred with a quiet energy, wounded tended with careful hands, songs of gratitude rising in. Clear voices and children playing among the teepees, their laughter bright against the calm. Ayana wrapped the hand-woven cloak tighter around her shoulders, the familiar symbols embroidered in rich earth tones glowing warmly in the dawn. The eagle, the bear, the flowing river each told the story of resilience and strength she now carried deep within her. Beside her, Tayanita stood tall and unyielding, his muscular form silhouetted against the brightening sky. His long black hair, adorned with beads and feathers, caught the early light, framing his fierce yet tender face. He turned to her, eyes filled with something beyond words, a fierce pride and uncheckable devotion. "You have risen through fire and shadow," he said softly. "You are not only my wife and queen, but the heart of this people." Ayana met his gaze, feeling the weight of those words settle in her chest like a gentle flame. Her journey from betrayal to belonging, from pain to power, had shaped her into someone she barely recognized but was proud to be. She looked around the camp, at the faces of the people who had welcomed her, fought beside her, and now trusted her to lead. Their eyes shone with hope and fierce loyalty. The elders stepped forward, presenting her with a carved wooden staff ornate and heavy, etched with symbols of their ancestors and the land. It was a sign of her authority and her bond with the tribe. With reverence, Ayana accepted the staff, feeling its smooth weight anchor her to this new life. She raised her voice, steady and clear, carrying across the valley. "We have faced darkness and betrayal, but together we have forged a new path, one of honor, strength, and unity. I vow to lead with courage and heart as the queen of this land and people." A cheer rose from the gathered crowd, a wave of sound that lifted her spirits higher than the tallest mountain. Tayanita stepped forward, taking her hand in his. "This is not just the beginning of a reign, but the continuation of a legacy, one that we will write together." Their hands intertwined, a symbol of partnership and trust forged in fire and trial. As the sun climbed higher, casting golden light over the valley, Ayana felt a peace settle over her, a peace born not of forgetting the past, but of embracing the future. The river sang its timeless song. The wildflowers swayed in the gentle breeze, and the land stretched endlessly before her, alive, wild, and free. Her brother's betrayal had set her on a path she never would have chosen. But through the pain, she had found a family, a purpose, and a strength that no greed could ever steal. She was no longer a prize to be traded, or a shadow to be hidden. She was a queen, a warrior, a woman who had risen from darkness into the light of a new dawn. And as the camp celebrated around her, the sky blazed with the colors of a future she was ready to embrace.